Well, hello my fellow car modelers. How you doing today? Today we're going to have a video on how to make chrome not look so toy-like. You know, you get that model together, you're trying to go for this illusion of what a real car looks like, and sometimes chrome has a tendency to give it more of that toy factor to it. And there's a lot of reasons why. And it's not so much that plastic chrome, it's somewhat different than what you find on real chrome on a car, but not really, not so much to where why is it so different looking in small scale and so toyish? Well, I'm going to show you what I do to calm that down. And this was an idea brought up to me by a viewer out there, Brian Price. And I want to thank you, Brian, for mentioning that. And, well, you know, let's show you what I do. And maybe that'll help you in building your model cars to look a lot more realistic and more to scale at a small scale. There's small scale, large, look like a large scale, small scale. Hey, we're talking about tricking the eye, right? So let's show you. Come on. So we're going to start off with a couple examples of how I toned down the chrome on models to not make them so toyish with two models I built quite a few years ago. And the first one is the Revell 41 Willys Gasser, and the second one is the Revell 57 Chevy 150 Sedan. A couple of really nice kits. I had a lot of fun building them. So I'm going to start with showing you the engines. This one's a little tricky to get off, the hinge system here. It's just easier to pull the whole hood off. And you can see there's chrome, but can you see from where you're looking, which would be about a vantage point of when you're looking at a model at a show. There's chrome there obviously, but it's not so bright and look all toyish and everything. And there's so many things you can do to get that all chilled out. And two things that I use is the panel liner, which is basically a black, really thin black paint that you just use as a wash. And I'll be using some, to me, a dull coat. And that is the TS80 dull coat. So the combination of the dull coat and the panel liner really gets the chrome to look a lot more realistic. In some places you want to tone it down. Some areas you still want to have that bright chrome, but these cars, some stuff was really bright, some stuff was actually just a polished aluminum, and that's never as bright as chrome. So I also replicated that on the 57 Chevy, all the bright work, or like all the trimming around the windshield and down the side. I'll show you in a little bit. I actually used bare metal foil aluminum, not the chrome, and I just kind of liked how I get that. And again, you can see that's what that is. That was that aluminum. I used the regular chrome, not bright chrome. I don't like bare metal foils. Bright chrome. I kind of like just a regular chrome, and that works really good for the Willys on that. But let's take a look at these engines. So we'll first start with this Willys engine, and as you can see on this blower here, how it doesn't look all bright and shiny. It looks a little toned down, and also you can see that it's got some darkened areas. And what the illusion I was trying to create there, and you can see also in the valve covers and on the ribs of the blower hat, what you need to do when things are scaled down, and we kind of don't think of it this way, is you have to create shadows, because in a scaled down version of something, it doesn't cast the same shadow that in you know, in our dimension, our real life 1:1 scale, you would get these shadow castings. So you have to create those, and you do that with a wash. And so what it gives you is it finds all the ribs and everything and other fine details, and like all the bolts and everything around here. So you use a light wash, which I'm going to show you what I do, and that will really tame down that toy look of chrome on a piece that especially has a lot of detail in it. And here's another good angle shot of it. And you can see a little better on the valve covers how, you know, a light wash will fill in all of the creases and everything of all your detail. and all on the blower hat. And again, we're creating that shadow that would be cast on a real size blower and valve cover and anything chrome. And you know, you have so much light reflecting back at you off of chrome. When it's small like this, the small little ribs don't cast the shadows that the full-size ones would. And that is what really gives it that toy look when you don't have that. And here's another example that I use the wash to basically get that toy look away from the chrome on this 57 Chevy. You can see that the grill here, all the basically the holes it would be, or the grating in that grill, you want to do a light black wash over it, and it fills all those little rectangles so that it gives that illusion of that's a grill, and we're able to see through it into the radiator area. And that always helps out in making grills look so much more realistic. And plus that black wash, you're kind of going over the entire grill with it, so it leaves kind of a residue which tones down the chrome quite a bit on all of the actual grilling, and it just doesn't look so bright and reflective. You can always take a little bit of wash, which I did in some of the little areas and lowered areas up into here, just to kind of get it, and you also see right up in there, just get that thing all toned. It gives dimension too, and depth. You're adding shadowing that would have been there on the full-size car, and that creates a depth which adds the realism to it all. Now here's a couple of examples of having it a little bit toned down. Again, all this trim right here, I used the bare metal foil aluminum instead of chrome, so it's not so bright. And those were actually not chrome on the real cars. That was an aluminum, you know, a stamped aluminum bright work, as they would call it, trim piece. So, you know, for the realistic look of it, use aluminum bare metal foil. And then you can see here on the hubcap, I just ran a nice wash around there to bring out the detail of all the ribs around the hubcap. Again, bringing in that depth, creating a shadowing effect that you don't get in small scale. And here's a fun shot. And what we've got here, as you can see in the headlight bezels, just using some wash a couple of times to get a little thicker in these areas that on the real cars were painted black, and it's kind of hard to get in there if you're trying to paint it. Use wash because it'll all flow in there nice, and it will stay away from your raised areas, and you can take a rag and just kind of wipe it away, and the lower areas the wash will just fill in there and dry out, and it'll just be like black paint. I did it there, and I also did it around here on the Willys headlight bezel. And it just gives, again, the correct look, those blacked areas that were on the real cars, and just helps you get that more realism in with your models. So now we got a few examples that we're going to do this washing and dull coating effects on to calm down these really bright toy looking chrome pieces we have. We've got a grill, we've got a ribbed valve cover, we have a blower, and we also have a couple of wheels that we're going to do the dull coating on, one of them, so that you can see the difference. So let's go ahead and start with this blower here. I'm going to be using the panel line accent color. It's black. To me it makes a black, a brown, a gray, I believe. A couple of different colors, but lots of times for the automotive use, black is going to be what you want, just to give a little shading. I might play around one of these days, get some brown panel liner and see how that does. But for now, let's just go with the black. And again, we're trying to create shadowing, because you see how toy-like this is looking and bright. You just bring this, you get a little dab there on there. It has its own little brush in there, which is nice and convenient, and you just kind of touch it and let it run. Now sometimes it looks a little bit too much. I'll just mull over, because you know what, you kind of want it to cover everything on account of you're trying to tone down the chrome a bit, so that's going to give it a little bit of a dulling effect, but not like so much like dull coating this, because we still want this to look like a chrome piece. So we're going to let that sit for a little bit. And I will also sometimes take a cloth or a Kleenex like this, and I'll just come across and kind of run it across the raised portions and maybe get some of the excess out of there and let that sit. And we'll take a look at that when we're all done. So now back onto the blower, it's sat and dried a bit, and on this side you can see where I did the detailing, and when you turn it around you see the difference. Look at how bright and toy-like that is. Turn it around. Now you can really notice the difference of what just a little bit of that panel liner detailer will do to make everything look better and realistic. And it's basically, like I was saying, it's creating the shadows that the real objects 1/1 scale would create, where you just don't get that when it's all scaled down. So now we're going to go on to the ribbed valve cover here. Ribbed parts like this, which were really popular in the 60s and 70s, so a lot of those hot rods will have a lot of this ribbing on there. And boy oh boy, you just want that to show up a lot better, because sometimes you just don't get enough shadowing in there to really see the ribbing that well when it's mounted onto the car. So you usually want to tip it up like that, so we're going to let gravity work with us, and you can take along the top here and just kind of hit it, and you see how it flows down, and you can kind of run down a little, but you just get it all to flow and get that side and get that side, and again it's running around the whole thing. And I usually like to hit like the entire valve cover, and then even kind of get down along the lip of the valve cover, because lots of times there's detail there of the valve cover bolts. And I'll just let it sit like that. If it looks like you get too much, if you kind of go a little bit too far, you feel, look at that, you got a lot there. Again, this is the cool thing. Take yourself a little Kleenex and you just touch it and it sucks it right up. Look at this. Ooh. Like the sound effects? See, it just sucks it right up. Easy to fix. And even while it's still wet like this, if you don't like what you did, if you felt you put it on too heavy, or you just want to try again, you can get that all cleaned off again and redo it really easy when it's at this point. And again, we're going to let that sit. It looks like you kind of got a lot on there, and it looks very dark around, especially around the lip where it's all pooled up, which again, you can take this and kind of hit it. But you don't want to take too much away, because when it dries, I'm telling you, it calms down a lot. You don't notice it as much. So, and that's what you want to do. You don't want it to be overdone, because then it looks like you got a whole bunch of black paint on your chrome parts and it looks a little messy. This, we kind of want to just accent and bring in the depth and the detail of raised and lowered portions on a chrome piece. Now on to the valve cover. You can see just how that panel lining, after it dries, it chills out a bit and it shrinks and gets into all the crevices and looks good. And it's not really noticeable that you did something, but you do notice something different. You can see those ribbing a lot better now, because that black down in the deeper parts, creating that shadow that the smaller pieces don't create where they do in real life. Well, you've made your shadowing and you got your look, and it definitely defines it a lot better. And grills. This is something that I'm sure you've seen a lot at shows and stuff like this. This is a part that sometimes gets missed when you're building a model. I did it in my early days till I discovered how to do it, because it's if you don't know or you're not aware of these washes and you try to sometimes make your own and it doesn't, for some reason, anytime I've ever tried to make my own, it never works out. And finally, the model paint companies, especially to me, they invented this panel line accent. Boy, this is just awesome to have. It's perfectly formulated and works out really good. So now it's just so easy to get that realism, because you know when you leave a grill alone and it's all chrome like this on a model, boy, that right there is the killer. It sure does make it look like a toy. So let's untoy this Camaro grill, and it's so simple, because we're going to do it just like on the valve cover. Since we already have natural peaks, we just flow across. Look at that. And it's good to get a whole bunch on there, and just, you just start dabbing across. Let's let it run. Just let it flow. I'm telling you, it's just going to look. I'm just going to do one side so that we can do a comparison when it's all done. So again, it really pooled up a lot in there. I'm going to get some of it sucked up, because most of it falls on the bottom there. So we get a little bit of it sucked up, and even get up around. You can even start running it a little around the edge there, just to give a little bit of shadowing around the chrome frame of the grill. And we're going to let that sit and dry. And with the grill, you can see the right side looks a little more defined, where everything gets lost on the left side there. Now what I would do, this is dried, I would probably even run a little bit more and a little bit more just to kind of get the inside the grating there to be a little more black, because of course on a real car there's nothing behind there, it's just open space, and that's the look that we're trying to create, because behind there with the hood closed and everything on a real car, the grill would look like that because it's all dark in there and there's no light, so nothing shows through on the grating. So I'm going to just hit it again. Just go across them. I don't have as much on this time, and I'll hit the emblem a little more, define that Z28 on there. Just get it going. And you just kind of, let's get close. Let's take a close look. You can see the differences. And now on to these wheels. One thing you can do to these wheels to make them all look good and get all that lines all looking nice, and you got the bolt detail down there, you just go in there and you just go in there and touch all them areas. It brings it to life. Again, it looks like you got a lot of paint going on in there, and you got that big black ring. It's going to go away as it dries. And again, like I always do, you take your tissue paper and you kind of just get in there and dab it and get some of that excess up. I don't know if you can see, but you kind of see a difference. You see how things get a little more defined. I might have sucked up a little bit too much, so I'm going to run a little bit more. Again, when you see after this dries, it does calm down the black a bit there. It's not so heavy in there. But there you go. And did you see how I just touched one side, and the physics of it all, the fluid will just run around the creases, and it just took off and went around the whole wheel. I just dabbed on one side and it did the job. Now what we're going to do with the wheels is we want to give them more of an aluminum look. And I'm taking the wheel that I did the detail around a bit, and you can see that it's kind of set up, and it's not so defined in there like it was before. It didn't look so much like there's black paint in there. It's just kind of defined all the lines. So you can hear me shaking up the Tamiya flat clear. So that's what we're going to use right now. And I just like to shoot it. Just you hit it a few times. You kind of want to turn around, get at the angle, just get in that thing. And when that's all done and dried, it will have more of an aluminum look. Here you go, as you can see, right here, this one is the one that's right out of the box, untouched. Here's the one that we put a little detailer on and shot some dull coat on, and it turns into a little more of an aluminum look. So it's still drying up a little bit, and you could probably use another shot. That's why it looks a little sloppy down inside there. I didn't really get it that real good. With a little bit of detail, if you want to give it that little bit of a defined look. But I tell you what I want to do also now is I'm going to take this without putting any detail on it, and let's go ahead and shoot some dull coat on this and calm this entire thing down. Okay, so I guess Luka here learned something too. I think that my experiment with the black wash and then doing the dull coat over it kind of was a mess. I don't really like how it turned out. That clear, maybe I didn't let it set long enough, but it seems like that clear just took the black and threw it all over the place and just didn't do too well. So I went ahead and shot flat clear on this other wheel, and I'm going to show the before and after here. And look how we got a really, really good aluminum look about it. It looks a lot more toned down. And hey, let's go ahead and put that into a tire and see what it looks like. There we go. That gives us a good look right there, what it'll look like. See how it's all calmed down a bit? That definitely looks a lot better than having it all that bright chrome. Unless you're going for the bright chrome look, which I have in the past. But I tend to like a more aluminum looking wheel. So That's what your dull coat will do for you on your chrome, if you want to make it a little more aluminum looking. So let's get a little better look at it from here. On this angle, we can move it around. You can see that that dull coat really takes that toyish looking chrome off there and really can change this way a set of wheels will look. Especially if you're wanting to go for more of that aluminum look, like if you're building a drag car or something. Just have that toned down chrome. Sometimes the chrome is just too much on these wheels, and they are depicting wheels that are really aluminum, not chrome plated. And this gives you a little bit better look. Looks pretty cool, huh? Yeah. So there you have it, boys and girls. That is how you chill out the chrome on your models, so they don't look so toyish, because we don't like toyish looks, right? Because when we were building these models, we're trying to depict real cars with these, and anytime we can make them look a little more real than toyish, and where they look a little more scale, especially when we like to take our pictures with the internet now. We like to post our pictures and kind of give a realistic background, kind of trick the eye. That's always a fun thing to do. It's always a neat thing when you post a model and someone goes, man, I thought that was a real car for a second. Well, this will help you, because lots of times the giveaway is that toyish looking chrome. So I hope this really helped you out. I got this idea again from listening to one of you guys out there. I was like, that's a great idea. I'm going to bust this out and get one out to you. I think this is going to help a lot of you guys out. I hope you learned from it. I just want to thank all your support out there. I get great comments. So like I always say at the end of these videos, this is me, Luka C. You guys keep gluing your fingers together and you keep cutting that styrene. And we're going to see you in the next video. Hello, Phoenix! And then we got my tree, and we have my Teespring. And then there's my, and then of course the Teespring. I can't say. And of course my Teespring. And of course my Teesprings. Jeez. Of course my Teespring store. And then we've got. I don't know what to say. I've lost my train of thought. It's a problem that I have here with my thought, with the train thought here. I don't build trains or play with trains, but I lost that thought. And don't forget to check down in the where do we go? Yeah. And don't forget to check down in the descriptions below. I've got some links to other. Or sometime. We just really, and well, you know, just this is about. Did I just have a stroke?